Hello and welcome to this edition of Ecological Witchcraft. And I'm really, really pleased tonight to introduce my guest, Lynn Shore. And Lynn has written this most wonderful book that's coming out, I believe, in October. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And this one, let me just get a picture up of it for you. This is the wonderful book. It's called The Green City Witch, Weaving a Magical Life in Urban Spaces. And I love this cover, Lynn. It's so pretty. And I love like the hawthorn and the blackberries and the ivy. Beautiful. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to write this book to start us off?
Yeah, it's something I kind of started to write it years and years and years ago. Like, I don't know, probably about 20 years ago, thinking, I need to write this down. I need to get some of this down. And then I had a little go at it properly 15 years ago. And then one thing got in the way of another. And it got too big, actually. I just had too many ideas to put in there. But I could really see that there was a need, because I live in Amsterdam and I've lived in different cities around the place. And I've lived in the countryside a lot as well. I could see there was kind of a lack of this sort of book, sort of a handbook to help people to understand how they could get into nature-based spirituality with whatever name they wanted to give it, from whatever background they had, but in a city. So that was it, really. But anyway, I got down to business properly with it 2 years ago, and it ended up becoming two books. So this is the first part of it. They're both sort of totally independent of each other. This one is sort of about the lifestyle of a green city witch, with whatever that is. And also there's a nature law section in it, which is really big. So there's like over 100 plants, which you'll find in European and British cities, from carob trees, that are sort of in the Mediterranean, in Europe, to, I don't know, the hawthorn, whatever, yeah? And mustard, what is it, garlic mustard, things like that. So there's all sorts in there for the plants, with sort of the magical side of them, how we can use them in spiritual practices, and also how we can maybe eat them, or we can make medicine with them, and whatever. So there's those sides for the plants, and then there's animals as well, because I felt that was kind of lacking too.
Yes.
There's loads about animals, isn't there? But I thought that was lacking for the city people, sort of, because we know about the crows, and they're in there, the corvids are in the book, and how we can sort of tap into their energies and so on, and shape shifting and that kind of business.
Brilliant.
But also things like bed bugs. Paris, not too far away from here, had a big bed bug problem a couple of years ago. Whether it was sort of a political thing or how real it was, the scale of it, I don't know. It caused panic. But what can we learn from that kind of creature that lives with us?
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and then there's a third section as well, and that's where I had to end it, the third section. So the third section is like, what is a spell? How do you get down to it? How do you do spell work? What's prayer? What's this? What's that? Da, 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 da. All the way to blood magic and things like this. So to try to sort of introduce people to it, but not too deep, but deep enough. And so that you can really get your hands on the green side of things if you're doing it already. That makes sense.
That sounds really interesting. I'm definitely going to grab a copy of that. So when you say that you practice green urban witchcraft, what makes it different from different forms of magical practice? What would you actually say that you're doing?
Yeah, well, I'm not classically, I've trained in druidry, and I still do class myself really as a druid witch.
Yeah.
So I've trained with old gods. So I've got some nice sort of background there. But I only did that over the last sort of 10 years. And really, since I was a little girl, I've been doing the other things, many of the other things which are in the book and so on. And I would class it to begin with as green magic. And in my eyes, that's not just sort of using herbs, using plants, or sort of not using animals or using plants, but sort of combining with their energies and embracing that. So there's that side of it, but also the sort of eco-awareness, being sustainable, and social awareness, and all the rest of it. So it's using the other parts of nature in your magic, for change, but in a way which doesn't take from them, which adds to it all. And
that's very much in line. That sounds and then what we do. Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, so You write about foraging and working with feral plants. I love the fact that you call them feral plants. In, why, why do you see that as a magical and a spiritual act, not just a practical one?
I think because it's all about doing it in the city for me as well. That's where I am, like right in the middle of
Yeah.
Amsterdam. And there are green patches here. There's, in fact, there's a good amount of green in Amsterdam, which is good. But there is in other towns and cities as well, you know, and some just don't have a lot. But wherever you are, you can get out and you can look at a street tree somewhere, even if it's not right in the centre shopping street, you know, where they don't have so many. But there are some aspects of green, and there are other living factors like the birds, you know, the sparrows or whatever it is. So I'm not going out foraging the pigeons and things like that, or the local council have encouraged it at times. And I wanted Japanese knotweed, and they said, no, go for the pigeons instead, try this. But yeah, I see it when I use it and I help people. So I teach a lot of people to do it and have done over the years. Like, go and find it, see what's out there and learn from it. And by sort of checking what your local street tree is, because
Yes.
in many places, yeah, they have like one tree that lines the whole street that they live on, and they don't really realize, but it's just easier for the maintenance crews, you know, if they're all the same. Sometimes it's not, but learn about that tree, go and see if you can forage from it. Can you take nuts from it? Are the leaves edible? What about the flowers? Is it one of those funny fake apples that has mini apples, but you know, the flowers might be useful or whatever. But so it's really possible to forage in the city. It's a big possibility. The legal side of it is a different matter,
Yeah.
but it's possible, you know, as a human, it's possible to go out and find food in the city. The spiritual side of it. Yeah, sorry.
It's not as bad in Europe and in Britain as it is in the States. There's some quite severe laws in the States that stop you doing a lot. And people have to do it on the sneaky side. You know, they go out and do a little bit of ninja foraging. But yeah, and I love the thought of somebody actually going out, because I've seen the big streets in London where they've got big trees going down the centre. And my philosophy is very much you work with the land you're on. So going out meeting those trees would be really interesting, and perhaps looking at what patterns the roots make and what they do to the flagstones that you're walking on and all that sort of stuff. It's really wonderful. What sort of spiritual work do you do with them?
Yeah, so with them, so it's that sort of finding them through the year. You can use them to track the year, to follow, you know, to feel a little bit more in tune with the year, because we don't have the same day and night really. And in the bigger cities, it's different than in the countryside, because I mean, it's quite, I think in parts of Wales I've been to where you've got these lovely starlit nights, you know, and we don't really get that so much in most cities. You've got this like permanent glow going on. So your body tries to tune in with the moon for your cycles and all the rest of it. But it's not the same. It's just a bit different. Well, it can be very different. So to be with the trees, to be with the plants, to be with the, you know, the birds which are out, the worms, what are the hedgehogs doing? Can you find a fox? All this kind of thing. So just trace them. That's the first thing with it. It helps you to follow, you know, whatever you want to call it, the wheel of the year or just the seasonal cycle. But also just to listen to them. Be with them. What do they need? What are they saying? Just get a conversation going with them and get the feel and the energy and just, there's so many possibilities. And do you want to eat them? Do they want to?
That link into, because one of the things that worries me at the moment in medicine is this idea that we've got this 24-hour day instead of the sort of the cycle where you used to have, like, you slept in the dark and you worked in the light, and the effect on the circadian rhythms and the hormone imbalances that's causing. It's no wonder we have mental health issues when all of this is causing massive problems. And there was a great story from, I'm not sure, I think it was Alabama, but in the middle of Alabama there was a massive power cut. And the police had loads of phone calls because people were reporting this really weird thing in the sky, and it was the Milky Way. And they'd never seen it before. So if you just think, oh my God, we've done such awful things to ourselves. So I really like that idea of using that to form some sort of connection with the land, even if you're under false light. At least you're forming that connection, which I think is really
Yeah, whatever it is. And, you know, it could be that someone forges a relationship with one tree, with one street animal, a cat that lives nearby, anything at all, any other than human aspect of your local environment. It's very easy. Once you start to look at it and you start to step back, but step into it,
Yeah.
you know, and take your
And
time
I think
to
I gotta be
listen.
honest, any advice for somebody trying, because I would imagine that it's quite disconnecting in cities. So that advice would be something they probably wouldn't think of without actually reading a book, which is wonderful. That's really, really good.
Yeah,
So
it could be.
in the spiritual aspect of things, you use
Mm.
the word prayer in your
Yeah,
book when talking about
yeah,
magic. And that interests me because a lot of people will go, oh, no, because
yeah.
it's a very Judeo-Christian word. But tell us about why you use that word.
Yeah, I really wanted it in there. And I sort of wrote the section about prayer and then I took it out and then I put it back in. I thought, no, it's got to be there. And it's one of the things, because over the years I have taught and come in contact with these beautiful people of all different ages, many of whom have moved to the city. And they've moved here for whatever reason. They might be people who are from this country and they've just moved to get a job here or for love or whatever it is. Or they could have been from a completely different culture, completely different continent, you know, from wherever. But they come here and they're looking for kind of groundedness. That's a big theme with people who are coming in my direction. And that was a huge reason to write the book, to sort of put on paper these things which we've been thinking about and working with for years. And with I've lost my train now. I've lost my train of thought. What was I trying to say? Prayer. So one of the things that I noticed, and I thought this is one of the reasons I got in contact with you a couple of years ago when I was sending out some questionnaires and I was interviewing some people from across all the continents, all different ages and backgrounds, but who I knew practiced nature-based spirituality of one form or another, to check that this wasn't just me sort of seeing it
I know the
and
feeling.
thinking, yeah, and just to open it up. And it really let things flow, actually. When I started to write it properly, I was like, no, it's all right. So just channel it, which can sound a bit corny, really, but it just flowed then. Because it's like, no, it's okay. Don't get in the way of it. Just let it out. And the prayer thing was that many, many of these people of different ages who I'm meeting, not the ones I interviewed particularly, but they seem to be at least one generation away from a family who, and this is a bit of a sweeping statement because there have been hundreds of them, at least a generation away from a system of paying reverence to something, to some form of spirit, building relationship with it in good times and bad, and then in bad times calling on that to help them or to give them strength or whatever. So now I was raised as I don't, you know, if my mum and dad are listening, I'm sure they won't mind it, but like as a soft Methodist Christian, so on the soft
I
side.
was raised with a Pentecostal preacher grandfather, so it's exactly what you say. It's all I know that I'm going to upset so many people when I say this. There is a phrase, and my girls in the coven will laugh at me when I say this. There is a phrase that people use. I am the granddaughter of the witches they didn't burn. That's total crap. It's total rubbish, and I hate it because when the witch burnings they weren't just witches. It was everybody that didn't agree with the Christian religion was in charge at the time, and they swapped places. Everybody burned everything, and it was also women. It wasn't witches. They didn't have to be witches because witches were undercover. Do you know what I mean? So I am concerned when people like my daughter is the daughter of a witch, so she is a familial witch, but I'm a familial Pentecostal. And
Yes.
you're a familial Methodist. So, and we shouldn't be ashamed of that. We should be proud of that, that we've managed to come out of that bit indoctrination. But I agree that prayer is a good word for what they do. And it's really funny because I'm writing a book at the moment, and part of that is describing what magic is. And in that, I've said magic takes the shape of whatever way you want to cast your spell. So it can be prayer, it can be manifestation is the latest incarnation.
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
Any of those things. It's just you applying your will to that plasticine universe and making it happen, you know? So yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah,
It's something that I think as pagans and as witches, we need to accept. You know, we've all come from 2,000 years of Christianity, you know, and that's
yeah.
perfectly okay. Sorry, I interrupted. Go on.
No, absolutely. That's exactly it. And I look back at the days. I mean, I actively moved away from it. I used to go to Sunday school. Mum and Dad would drop me and my sister off on a Sunday at the next village kind of thing. They go back home and, you know, relax, I'm sure, without the two girls there, and do a bit of DIY and all the rest of it.
Yeah,
And that was our Sunday routine. And I built relationships there. I learned things. I found it was useful. Looking back, some of it was very useful to have some form of system. And then I walked away at
yeah,
the age that many people do as well. About 12, 13, I was like, this is really not sitting well with me. And I moved away from it. But I had learned in that time to pray. And I worked it. I really remember doing that because I was always one more for talking to the snails in the garden, for sitting under the bush, or, you know, like many people do, building more of a relationship with the nature which is around them than with, not more than with the people, but in a different way, in a more spiritual way, with the nature than with the human people around them. So when you leave that, all is well, that's all fine, very happy with it. But then if you see these people who've never had anything like that, and then their parents have never had anything like it, amazing. I mean, amazing freedom, absolutely fantastic, because they don't have those sort of shackles and morals. Not that they don't have morals, but they don't have these same exact stories and morals going around in their head to sort of taint things, like a veil in front, you know. So on that side of it, it's fantastic. But when they're getting down and they're getting depressed and they're moving to a new city and they're feeling lost and everything, there is often at that point they're seeking people out like me because they don't quite know what to do. And the therapist can help with it. They can give them tools and so on, but they are still lacking a connection with spirit. And that's where I think build a relationship, whatever you want to call it, just, you know, I'm using the word prayer, but
yeah,
build a relationship, which is not spell work in this case. It is about paying homage to nature
yeah.
and just, yeah, you know what I mean?
I
And
think
then later, pull on it. Who's going to answer your prayers if you don't give them good attention beforehand, you know? So,
yes, yeah, indeed. So if you let's talk about spiritual and magical work then. So if you were say let's put ourselves into a one-bedroom flat in the middle of London.
yeah,
So what would be
yeah.
something that you would recommend somebody did in order to enhance their spiritual and magical practice there?
Yeah, if they were feeling really at a loss and like they didn't know where to begin, I'm looking at the lovely setting behind you, Charlotte, and I can see there's at least one spider plant there. I can see some ivy worked over the picture and all the rest of it. Get yourself a house plant would be one thing,
Yeah,
which can sound very simplistic, but that's a really good thing to do. And in the book, actually, I've put things like spider plant, like how is it used medicinally in the countries that it was taken from originally, and what can we use it? And we can actually, if it's organic, we could use it. So you could get yourself something like a house plant, which is to some degree is edible, perhaps, so you can do a bit more practical work with it. And try to just spend time, slow down on whether it's an indoor plant or an outdoor one. And I'm just focusing on the plants at the moment. Just be with them, notice what's going on. That's one thing to do. And also take time to, I sometimes say to people, like, get a map, almost like an old-fashioned map, or have it on your phone if you prefer, and walk your city or your town where you can, where you feel it's safe to do so. Walk it, or if you can, cycle it or something, but get the feel of the energy in the different areas. And I know, you know, there are many different names for the spirits of the different places and the different towns and cities and so on, but more from street to street. Like, where does the wind howl through, you know, on a windy day? What can you get from that? And can you use that do you know, because that's something that I encourage people to do, is like how to tap in. If you need a pickup, where do you go to pick that up? If you need to calm down, which areas are going to help you with that? So bit of a tracking around your area is good. That will really help you to tap into your
really
place.
interesting for me from a magical perspective, because in doing that, because people forget sometimes, you know, when you're driving down a road and there's a
Yeah,
T junction, that's a
yeah,
crossroads, and people
yeah,
forget that. And they are
yeah,
such powerful magical places.
yeah,
If you walk the city or rode on a bike around the city, you could find all those lovely little places where you could do magic, and
yeah,
it would really make your magic much nicer and much stronger and purposeful. So
yeah,
I like that. That's a really good idea.
yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that you did when you were preparing for your book was you interviewed lots and lots of magical practitioners. What were some of the things in those interviews that surprised you the most? You must have got some really interesting ones.
Yeah, I did. Do you know, one of the things actually were the number of people who the core with it, which I guess wasn't really surprising. Looking back, it could have been, wasn't, was that the crux of everybody's comments was kind of the same. That whatever they called, whatever the name was, whatever the background was, it was all that they felt it won really with nature.
Mm.
But I did, of course, choose people who were nature, you know,
Yeah.
very, very natural kind of practitioners. So that was one thing that really came through. So whatever the name of it, that was a core. But probably that some of them, they, however mature they were in years and in practice, they felt confident in what they did. But if they hadn't trained in a system, they almost still didn't feel confident to say it. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. Yes, I understand
That
that
was,
completely.
yeah, that was quite a surprise to me.
Yeah,
And perhaps that's why I felt the need to write and
yeah,
contact all those people, because I was the same.
yeah.
Because I was coming from, you know, mom and dad weren't practicing magic. They're quite open to it actually in their own way, and healing and that kind of side of things was very natural. But yeah, you find your way. Loads and loads of people find their way.
It's
And
interesting for me
yeah,
because I'm very good friends with some of the younger practitioners
yeah,
that are coming through, and none of them have what's called a lineage. And there are people in the world that still will look, throw the side eye is the word I would use,
yeah,
somebody who hasn't got
yeah,
lineage. And
yeah,
I honestly, I'm writing this book, and part of the thing that I write about in this is that magic, in order for magic to grow, it has to come out from different areas. If it was completely
yeah,
restrained to one area, it would have died out years ago. But
yeah,
because you have all of these different mechanisms, that's how it grows. So I think some of the most talented and inspirational and beautiful practitioners are
yeah.
not lineage based witches. And
No,
it's because they're looking at the world in a different way rather than through
yeah,
the lens of the lineage. I think that's
yeah,
really important. And you're right,
yeah,
it is nice for them to have a book that will say to them, that's okay. It's okay to
yeah,
be that way. In fact, in my
yeah.
opinion, it's better.
It's fine. It's authentic. It feels more authentic. And I think because when just before we started recording, we said because we've both got a scientific background
Yes, yes,
and
we do.
both in genetics, which is great. We both moved away from it, which is great. But I look at what I do in kind of scientific way, in a scientific way of, well, this makes sense because,
Yeah,
or this is possible because, but also overriding all of that is a massive, or rather a wiping of that filter, which is, of course, we don't understand all of this. How could we? Science is like this much of the knowledge, and the rest is all of this. You know, it's off the scale. So that was really good to see, and it kind of made me remember as well. In fact, when I was thinking about I was cooking dinner tonight, and I was thinking about something that happened to me years ago when I was living in West Somerset, tiny little hamlet called Bilbrook, lovely place when I was a teacher over there. And I was a reflexologist at the time and a school teacher, did a bit of both. And I had a new client came, and it was a neighbour that I'd never met. It was a lovely woman. And she said, I really want you to work on my partner's feet. He's got a foot issue. Anyway, I want to do it. But they turned out to be witches. And they came round and gave him a nice, foot reflexology session. It was all lovely and had this discussion. But actually, they then tried to kind of tell me, not that being a reflexologist means you're a witch or you're a magical practitioner, but I know at the time, I was in my early 20s, and I was like trying to fit, trying to belong to like the pantheon of Egypt and this kind of thing. I was getting hold of all the books I could get hold of because I didn't know about it. I thought, I'm meant to be doing this, I'm meant to be reading it. So I must have let something slip about that. Then I ended up with a thing, I don't know what kind of witchcraft they were from, but she was from lineage, and he was her partner. And it was all about, yes, and we did this, and they were up against the wall, and oh, the power and all the rest. And then, of course, my thoughts as this little 20-something was like, well, it's not real. It's not real what I'm doing. It can't be, because I'm not in this group. Whereas, and that I wanted to write to that person and all those people, like to me at that age, like, forget it. It's okay. It's wonderful if those people do that. They love it, I think. It's great for them. We need that in the world. But we don't have to do that ourselves. Exactly. There are a million other ways to be magical practitioners. So, yeah.
Absolutely. You're absolutely talking my language, because it's something that, and when people use it as a gatekeeping method, it hurts people, and I dislike that incredibly. I really do. Okay, we'll move away from the controversial topic.
I love them all, but it's not, we can't all go there. We're not all in that direction. I'm a snail lover. That was my lineage, snails and healing and all the rest of it. But it all has different names, all different forms.
Exactly.
We need many.
It is important. Well, hang on a minute. I thought I'd stopped the recording then for some reason. We need all of those different ways, because magic thrives through different pathways. I think that's really important. So when you have a reader that comes to the end of your book, what do you want them to have accomplished or got from your book?
I want them to feel confident in themselves as a green city witch, really, wherever they live. I mean, they might live in the countryside as well. That's also fine. It'll also work. But I want them to feel confident, to hold their head up. In fact, to someone like I've just talked about, really, should they want to, say, no, this is me. I have powers. I have strength. I have the ability. I'm aware of my surroundings. I know my place in it. I don't know all about it. Nobody does. But I know how to manipulate things and manipulate, I find a difficult word actually. But that's what I want, is that they feel strong. Sounds a bit of a cliche, but they feel sort of in their power.
Yes.
Whatever their background, and that they can do it, however tiny their kitchen is, or whether they, because most of us can't actually get a fire going. We haven't got the possibility of having a fire. It's not allowed.
I'm lucky at the boonies, so I still have cold central heating, which is hugely unecological. But I'll be honest with you, I do like a fire in the winter.
It's great. Yeah.
I'm going to share the picture of your book again and give people some information on the book, so that, because I know it's on pre-order at the moment, because I had a look earlier on. So this is Lynn's book, The Green City Witch, and this is at the moment on pre-order on Amazon and on Eon Books, and it's up for the princely price of £22.50. So I've already pre-ordered my copy, because it's going to be a wonderful book. And I just would like to thank you so much for joining us, because that was a wonderful chat, and I'm sure there'll be loads of people out there. Can I ask you if it would be all right to share your contact details if anybody does want to contact you, so that...
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. On
the bottom of the recording, so people can get hold of you. Thank you so much, Lynn. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And hopefully I'll be able to ship you back in a couple of months' time to do another one. Thank you very much.
Great speaking, Sian.
Next week for the next one. It'll probably be a plant of the week again next week. So hopefully I'll see you then. Bye.